The message came at midnight, traveling across 300 light years before reaching Earth. Commander Daniel Porter stood in the communication center of the human diplomatic vessel Horizon, reading the words again and again. The Velthari were dying. Their ancient enemy had returned, and no one in the galaxy would help them. Daniel closed his eyes and remembered the stories his grandmother told him. She had been only 7 years old when her colony ship broke apart in the darkness between stars. 12,000 humans had floated in that cold void, waiting for death. Their distress signal had gone out to anyone who would listen, but the galaxy had ignored them. Humans were new to space travel then. They had nothing to offer, no power, no wealth, no influence. They were simply dying, and no one cared. But the Velthari had come. They had risked everything to save those 12,000 strangers. The Kasori Dominion had warned them not to interfere, had threatened war if the Velthari helped the humans. But old Counselor Rethus had looked at those desperate human faces and made his choice. He sent his ships. He saved them all. That was 30 years ago. Daniel's grandmother had lived because of that choice. His mother had been born because of that choice. He existed because a Velthari leader had decided that doing the right thing mattered, more than doing the safe thing. Now Counselor Rethus was an old man, and his world was burning. Daniel walked to the bridge where Ambassador Linda Graves waited for him. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent her life studying alien cultures, learning their languages, understanding their ways. But today, she looked tired and sad. "You read the message," she said. It was not a question. "The Kasori have 200 warships around the Velthari homeworld," Daniel replied. "They are demanding complete surrender. If the Velthari refuse, the Kasori will destroy every city, every village, every living thing on that planet." Linda nodded slowly. The Velthari sent requests for help to every major power in the galaxy. The Rathani said no. The Collective said no. The Trade Federation said it was not their concern. "Everyone is afraid of the Kasori. And us?" Daniel asked. "What did Earth say?" Linda smiled, but there was something fierce in that smile. "The Earth Council voted 1 hour ago. The vote was unanimous." Daniel felt his heart beat faster. "We are going to help them. We are going to do more than help them," Linda said. She handed him a data tablet with classified orders. "For the past 20 years, humanity has been building ships in secret. Everyone thinks we are a minor species with a small defense fleet. Everyone thinks we are harmless. That is exactly what we wanted them to think." Daniel read the orders, and his eyes went wide. 180 warships. Hidden shipyards in dead systems. Weapons that no one knew humans possessed. All of it kept secret, waiting for the day when humanity would need to show its true strength. "Admiral Nathan Cole is already moving the fleet," Linda continued. "They will travel through uncharted routes to avoid detection. No one will see them coming. And us?" Daniel asked. "What is our mission?" "We go first," Linda said. "One small diplomatic ship, requesting permission to evacuate human citizens from the Velthari homeworld. The Kasori will laugh at us. They will let us pass because they think we are nothing. And while they laugh, you will map every ship in their fleet. You will find their weaknesses. You will send that information to Admiral Cole." Daniel understood. The Horizon would be the bait. They would walk into the enemy's trap with open eyes, trusting that help was coming behind them. "The Kasori might kill us before the fleet arrives," he said quietly. "They might," Linda agreed. But 30 years ago, 12,000 humans were dying in space, and the Velthari came to save them anyway. They did not know if they would succeed. They only knew it was right to try. She put her hand on his shoulder. "We are humans, Daniel. We remember our debts. We remember who helped us when we were weak. And we repay those debts, no matter what it costs." Daniel looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, an old Veltari counselor was watching his world fall into darkness. He probably thought he was alone. He probably thought everyone had forgotten what he did 3 decades ago. He was wrong. Set a course for the Veltari system, Daniel ordered. Maximum speed. The horizon jumped to faster-than-light travel, and the stars blurred into lines of light around them. Behind them, in the shadows of empty systems, 180 human warships began to move. They carried no flags. They sent no messages. They simply flew toward the enemy, silent and determined. On the Veltari homeworld, Counselor Repays stood at his window and watched Kesari ships darken his sky. He was old now, his scales faded and his movements slow. He had sent messages to every ally he had ever known, and all of them had refused to help. He understood their fear. The Kesari were powerful and cruel. No one wanted to die for the Veltari. Repays thought about the humans he had saved so long ago. He wondered what had happened to them. He hoped they had found peace somewhere, far from this war. At least his sacrifice had meant something. At least those 12,000 people had lived. He did not know that those humans had never forgotten him. He did not know that their children and grandchildren told stories about the brave Veltari who came out of the darkness to save them. He did not know that those stories had become promises, and those promises had become ships, and those ships were coming now. The first act of kindness always seems small. A hand reaching out. A choice to help when helping is hard. But kindness has a way of growing. It plants seeds that take root across years and generations. And sometimes, when the darkness seems complete, those seeds bloom into something powerful. Counselor Repays did not know any of this yet. But he would learn. The whole galaxy would learn. Humanity always pays its debts. The Kesari blockade stretched across the darkness like a wall of death. 200 warships hung in perfect formation around the Veltari homeworld. Their weapons pointed at the planet below. Warlord Dreven stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled at the terror he had created. He was a massive creature, covered in thick armor plates that no weapon could pierce. His species had conquered 40 worlds. They had crushed every enemy who dared to stand against them. The Veltari were just another victim, another name to add to their list of victories. Any response from the planet? Dreven asked. His officer checked the communications. General Sethka continues to request time for negotiations. He has also sent messages to the Rothani Empire, the Collective, and several other powers. Dreven laughed, and the sound was like rocks grinding together. Let him beg. No one will come. Everyone knows what happens to those who oppose the Kesari. The Veltari will surrender or they will die. Those are the only choices. Far below, General Sethka stood in the underground command center and stared at the rejection messages on his screen. The Rothani expressed sympathy but could not risk war. The Collective offered prayers but no ships. The Trade Federation pretended they had never received his message at all. Sethka was a soldier. He had fought in 3 wars and won them all. But he had never faced an enemy like this. The Kesari were too many, too strong, too cruel. His fleet was already destroyed. His orbital defenses would last perhaps 2 more days. After that, there would be nothing between his people and extinction. Sir, one of his officers said, we have received one more response. Sethka looked up without hope. Who? The humans. They are sending a diplomatic ship to evacuate their citizens from our world. Sethka almost laughed. The humans. That small, weak species from the edge of the galaxy. They had a few dozen ships at most, barely enough to defend their own territory. What could they possibly do against 200 Kesari warships? Tell them they are welcome to come, Sethka said. At least someone will survive this. 3 days later, the horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Veltari system. Commander Daniel Porter looked at the tactical display and felt cold fear run through his body. The Kasori fleet was even larger than the reports had said. Their ships were massive, bristling with weapons, arranged in a perfect killing formation. Lieutenant Commander Grace Kim stood beside him, her face calm despite the danger. She was the best tactical officer in the human fleet, known for finding solutions that others could not see. Today, she would need all of her skill. "They are scanning us," Grace said. "One ship. No weapons visible. They probably think we are a joke." "Good," Daniel replied. "Let them think that." The communication screen flickered, and Warlord Dreven's face appeared. He looked at the tiny human ship, and his expression showed nothing but contempt. "Human vessel," Dreven said. "You have entered a war zone. State your purpose." Daniel kept his voice humble and small. "Great Warlord, we are here only to evacuate human citizens from the Volturi homeworld. We mean no disrespect. We have no part in this conflict." Dreven studied him for a long moment. Humans were nothing to him. They were weak, primitive, barely worth noticing. This one ship could not possibly threaten his fleet. "You may pass," Dreven said. "Collect your people and leave quickly. When we begin our attack, we will not stop for anyone." "Thank you, Great Warlord," Daniel said, bowing his head. The screen went dark, and Daniel allowed himself a small smile. The enemy had made their first mistake. They had let the fox into the henhouse. "Begin scanning," he ordered quietly. "I want the position of every ship, the power signature of every weapon, the shield frequency of every vessel. Send it all to Admiral Cole." Grace nodded and went to work. Her fingers moved across the console with expert speed. Every Kasori ship thought the tiny human vessel was harmless. They did not bother to hide their formations or protect their communications. They showed everything, and Grace recorded it all. Meanwhile, in a dead system far from any travel routes, Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the carrier Resolute and watched more ships arrive. They came in groups of 5 or 10, dropping out of faster-than-light travel with practiced precision. No flags, no signals. Just silent warships gathering in the darkness. Captain Henry Shaw walked up beside him. "That makes 150, sir. Another 30 are still on their way." Cole nodded. He was an older man with white hair and steady hands. He had spent his career preparing for a moment like this, a moment when humanity would need to show its true face to the galaxy. "The data from the horizon is coming in now," Shaw continued. "Lieutenant Commander Kim has mapped the entire enemy fleet. She has identified 17 critical weak points in their formation." Cole studied the tactical display. The Kasori were arranged for intimidation, not defense. They expected no resistance. They had positioned their command ships in the center, protected by layers of smaller vessels. But those layers had gaps. Small gaps, but enough for someone clever to exploit. "The Kasori think they are hunters," Cole said quietly. "They've never been prey. They do not know how to react when the attack comes from behind." He looked at his officers. "We jump in 12 hours. Tell everyone to rest while they can. When we arrive, there will be no second chances." Across the fleet, men and women prepared for battle. They checked their weapons, wrote messages to their families, and made peace with whatever gods they believed in. Many of them would die tomorrow. They all knew this. But they went anyway, because 30 years ago, strangers had risked everything to save their grandparents. Now it was time to return the favor on the Volturi homeworld. Councilor Rethus received word that a human ship had arrived. One small vessel, coming to save a few dozen citizens. It was a kind gesture, he thought. A pointless one, but kind. The humans could not save his world. No one could. He did not know that behind that one small ship, an entire fleet was waiting. He did not know that the humans had been planning this moment for 2 decades. He did not know that tomorrow the galaxy would change forever, but he would learn soon enough. They all would. The bombardment began at dawn. Kesari weapons rained fire upon the Vulthury orbital platforms, turning metal into vapor and vapor into nothing. General Sethko watched his defenses crumble one by one. His people had fought bravely, but bravery was not enough against such overwhelming force. Orbital Station 7 has fallen, an officer reported. Station 8 is losing power. We have perhaps 3 hours before they breach our final defenses. Sethka closed his eyes. 3 hours. That was all the time his world had left. After that, the Kesari would land their troops. They would march through Vulthury cities and leave nothing but ashes behind. Millions would die. His entire species would be erased from history. Far above, Warlord Dreven watched the destruction with satisfaction. This was the moment he loved most, when his enemies finally understood that resistance was impossible. The Vulthury had been proud once. They had defied the Kesari dominion. Now they would pay for that pride with everything they had. Prepare the landing forces, Dreven ordered. I want troops on the ground before nightfall. His officers moved to obey. Victory was certain now. Nothing could stop them. And then the sky broke open. 180 points of light appeared behind the Kesari fleet. They came out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, weapons already charging, shields already raised. Human ships. Not a handful, not a few dozen, but an entire armada that no one knew existed. For one long moment, the Kesari fleet was frozen with shock. This was impossible. Humans were weak. Humans had no power. Humans were nothing. Admiral Nathan Cole's voice rang across every frequency. Attention, Kesari fleet. 30 years ago, the Vulthury saved 12,000 humans when we had nothing to offer in return. They risked war with your dominion to rescue strangers from the void. Today, humanity repays that debt. You will leave this system, or you will be destroyed. There will be no second warning. Warlord Dreven stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ships were everywhere, surrounding his fleet from 3 directions. They had appeared in exactly the right positions to cut off his retreat. Someone had given them detailed information about his formation. Someone had mapped every ship in his fleet, the tiny diplomatic vessel, the harmless little ship he had allowed to pass through his lines. They had used it to spy on him, and he had been too arrogant to notice. All ships, attack formation. Dreven roared. Destroy the humans. The battle began in fire and thunder. Kesari warships turned to face the unexpected enemy, their weapons blazing. But the humans were not where the Kesari expected them to be. They moved in patterns the Kesari had never seen before, attacking from angles that should have been impossible. Retreating before counterattacks could land. Captain Henry Shaw led his strike group straight toward the Kesari flagship. His carrier, the Resolute, was smaller than the enemy vessel, but speed and surprise were on his side. Kesari weapons reached for his ships, but Shaw twisted through the fire with practiced skill. Target their engines, Shaw ordered. If we cannot kill them, we can cripple them. Human missiles streaked across the void and slammed into the flagship's propulsion systems. Explosions bloomed along the massive vessel's hull. The flagship shuddered and slowed, its ability to maneuver suddenly gone. On the planet below, Counselor Rithis rushed to the command center. He had heard the explosions. He had seen the new lights in the sky. He needed to understand what was happening. General Sethka turned to him with an expression of pure wonder. The humans came, he whispered. They brought a fleet. They are fighting the Kesari for us. Rithis stared at the tactical display. Human ships danced between Kesari warships, striking and withdrawing, drawing the enemy out of formation. It was beautiful and terrible all at once. Why? Rithis asked. We are nothing to them. We helped them once, long ago. But why would they risk so much? The answer came from Commander Daniel Porter, who had just landed his ship at the main spaceport. He walked into the command center still wearing his flight suit, sweat on his face and determination in his eyes. "Because you saved my grandmother," Daniel said simply. "Because you saved 12,000 people who had no claim on your mercy. Because you taught us what it means to help strangers in their darkest hour." He stood before the old counselor and bowed his head. "My people never forgot, Counselor Rethus. We tell our children about you. We teach them that the Valkyrie came when no one else would. And we promised ourselves that someday, somehow, we would repay that gift." Rethus felt tears forming in his old eyes. 30 years ago, he had made a choice. He had known it might cost him everything. But he had looked at those desperate human faces and decided that some things were more important than safety. Now those humans had come back. Their children and grandchildren had crossed the galaxy to stand between his people and destruction. The dead had come full circle. Above them, the battle raged on. Admiral Cole directed his forces with cold precision, exploiting every gap in the Kasori formation. Grace Kim fed him constant updates, identifying targets and opportunities that others missed. Human ships fell, but for everyone that died, 3 Kasori vessels burned. Warlord Dreven watched his perfect formation collapse into chaos. His flagship could not move. His communications were being jammed. His fleet was being torn apart by an enemy he had dismissed as harmless. How is this possible? He screamed. They are humans. They are nothing. But the humans did not fight like nothing. They fought like people who remembered every kindness and every cruelty. They fought like people who had waited 30 years for this moment. They fought like people who would rather die than break their promise. And slowly, terribly, the Kasori began to lose. Dreven looked at his tactical display and saw the truth. Half his fleet was damaged or destroyed. The humans had blocked every escape route. He had walked into a trap, and he had not even realized it until the jaws closed around him. For the first time in his life, Warlord Dreven knew fear. The hunters had become the hunted dot, and humanity was just getting started. The battle had lasted 6 hours, but to those who fought it, the time felt like forever. Kasori ships burned in the darkness, their hulls cracked open, their crews dying in the void. Human ships moved among them, still hunting, still fighting, still refusing to give up. Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the Resolute and watched the destruction he had created. 23 human ships had been destroyed. 712 men and women had died following his orders. He would remember every one of their names. He would carry their sacrifice for the rest of his life. But the Kasori had lost far more. 140 of their warships were gone. Their flagship drifted without power, surrounded by human vessels. Warlord Dreven was trapped, his mighty fleet reduced to scattered groups fighting alone. "Sir," an officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from Second Commander Vashka. He is offering to surrender his ship group. 30 vessels in total." Cole considered this. Vashka was Dreven's second in command, a younger officer who had always seemed uncomfortable with his warlord's cruelty. Perhaps he had finally decided that enough was enough. "Accept the surrender," Cole ordered. "Tell him that any vessel which powers down its weapons will not be attacked. They will be treated with dignity and respect." The order went out, and one by one, 30 Kasori ships stopped fighting. They lowered their shields and waited for the humans to take them prisoner. Their crews expected torture and death. That was what the Kasori did to captured enemies. That was what they assumed everyone did. But the human ships did not fire. Instead, they sent medical teams. They helped wounded Kasori soldiers. They treated prisoners with the same care they would give their own people. Lieutenant Commander Grace Kim watched a Kasori officer being carried to a human medical ship. The alien was badly burned, barely conscious, his armor melted to his skin. A human doctor worked over him with desperate speed, trying to save a life that most people would have let slip away. Why? The Kasori officer whispered. Why save me? I am your enemy. The doctor did not stop working. Because you are hurt, she said simply. Because you need help. That is enough reason. On his crippled flagship, Warlord Dreven refused to accept reality. His fleet was destroyed. His officers were surrendering. His entire invasion had collapsed into ruin. But his pride would not let him stop. All remaining ships, attack. He screamed, ramming speed. We will take as many of them with us as we can. 40 loyal vessels turned toward the human fleet and began their final charge. They had no hope of victory. They knew they would die. But they followed their warlord anyway, because they did not know any other way. Admiral Cole saw them coming. He could destroy them easily. A single order, and those 40 ships would vanish in fire. But he thought of the prisoners he had already taken, the wounded soldiers receiving care on his medical ships, the lives that might still be saved. Broadcast on all frequencies, Cole ordered. Attention Kasori vessels. We do not wish to destroy you. Power down your weapons, and you will be spared. You have 1 minute to decide. The charging ships did not slow. Dreven's voice echoed across the communication channels, ordering his crews to ignore the human offer. Death before surrender. Death before dishonor. But not all of his crews agreed. One by one, ships began to break formation. First 5, then 10, then 20. They powered down their weapons and drifted to a stop, choosing life over their warlord's mad pride. Only 12 ships remained loyal to Dreven. 12 ships against 160. It was suicide, and everyone knew it. Take out their engines, Cole ordered. Disable, do not destroy. I want those crews to have a chance to evacuate. Human weapons struck with surgical precision. Kasori engines exploded. Ships lost power and tumbled through space. But their hulls remained intact. Their crews remained alive. Only Dreven's flagship kept coming, its broken engines somehow still producing thrust. The warlord stood on his bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his officers, driving his ship toward the enemy with his own hands. I am Dreven, he screamed. I am the conqueror of worlds. I will not be defeated by vermin. Admiral Cole watched the flagship approach. He could destroy it with a single shot. He probably should. But something made him hesitate. Open a channel, he said. Dreven's face appeared on the screen. He was wounded, bleeding from a dozen cuts. His armor cracked and burned. But his eyes still burned with hate. Warlord Dreven, Cole said calmly, your fleet is destroyed. Your officers have surrendered. You have lost. But you can still save your crew. Stand down and let them live. Dreven laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. Live as prisoners? Live in shame? You do not understand us, human. We would rather die. Then die, Cole replied. But give your crew the choice. Some of them might want to see their families again. Some of them might want to rebuild what you have destroyed. Let them decide for themselves. For a long moment, Dreven said nothing. His hands trembled on the controls. His breathing was ragged and pained. Then, slowly, he released the controls and stepped back. All crew, abandon ship, he said quietly. Get to the escape pods. That is my final order. Kasori sailors rushed for the exits. Escape pods launched from the dying flagship, carrying them to safety. Within minutes, only Dreven remained on his bridge. Will you come with them? Cole asked. Dreven shook his head. A captain dies with his ship. That is one tradition even humans must understand. Cole nodded slowly. He did understand. He would have made the same choice. You fought well, Warlord, he said. Your courage was never in question. Drevin almost smiled. You are strange creatures, humans. You fight like demons, but you speak like priests. He looked around his shattered bridge one last time. Perhaps my people underestimated you. Perhaps everyone did. The connection ended. Moments later, the flagship's reactor exploded, and Warlord Drevin vanished into light. Admiral Cole lowered his head for a moment of silence. Then he turned to his officers. Begin rescue operations. Every survivor gets medical care, regardless of species. And someone tell Counselor Repays that his world is safe. On the planet below, the Valkyrie watched the human ships moving through the wreckage, saving lives instead of taking them. They had expected warriors. They had found something else entirely. They had found mercy. 3 months had passed since the battle, but the galaxy still could not stop talking about what had happened. A minor species from a small planet had appeared from nowhere and crushed one of the most powerful fleets in known space. The Kasori Dominion, feared for centuries, had been humbled by creatures they had dismissed as irrelevant. The Galactic Assembly gathered on the neutral station of Meridian, primed to discuss what this meant for everyone. Representatives from 100 species filled the Great Hall, all of them watching as Ambassador Linda Graves walked to the speaking platform. The Assembly demands an explanation, declared the Rathani delegate, a tall figure wrapped in ceremonial robes. How did humanity build such a fleet in secret? How long have you been deceiving us? Linda Graves smiled politely. We did not deceive anyone. We simply never advertised our capabilities. When your species asked how many ships we had, we told you about our public fleet. You never asked about anything else. This is unacceptable, another delegate protested. You have upset the balance of power in the entire galaxy. No, Linda replied calmly. The Kasori upset the balance of power when they decided to exterminate an entire species. We simply restored it. She looked around the hall at all the frightened, confused faces. Let me be clear about something. Humanity did not fight the Kasori because we wanted power. We did not fight them because we wanted territory or resources or influence. We fought them because 30 years ago, the Valkyrie saved 12,000 of our people when no one else would. We owed them a debt. We paid it. That is all. The Assembly fell silent. This was not how galactic politics worked. Species did not risk everything to repay old kindnesses. They calculated advantages and weighed risks and made decisions based on profit. But humans, it seemed, did things differently. Counselor Repays rose from his seat in the Valkyrie section. He was old and tired, still recovering from the stress of watching his world nearly die. But his voice was strong when he spoke. I would like to testify, he said. 30 years ago, I made a decision that many called foolish. I sent my ships to rescue human colonists from a disaster that was not our concern. The Kasori threatened us. My own advisors warned me. But I looked at those humans floating in the darkness, and I could not leave them to die. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I did not rescue them because I expected anything in return. I rescued them because it was right. Because that is who I wanted my people to be. I thought my kindness would be forgotten. I thought it was just one small act in a universe that does not care about small acts. Repays looked at Ambassador Graves, and his old eyes were full of tears. I was wrong. The humans remembered. They told their children about us. They built a fleet to protect us. They crossed the galaxy to stand between my people and extinction. He turned back to the Assembly. This is what humanity taught me. Small acts matter. Kindness matters. The universe remembers, even when we think no one is watching. The hall was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, delegates began to talk among themselves. They thought about their own histories. They remembered small favors given and received. They wondered what debts they might have forgotten. After the assembly session, Second Commander Vashka requested a private meeting with Admiral Cole. The Kasori officer had been a prisoner for 3 months, treated well but uncertain of his future. Now he stood before the human admiral with something like hope in his eyes. "I wish to request asylum," Vashka said. "Not just for myself, but for the others who surrendered with me. We cannot return to the Dominion. They would execute us for our failure." Cole studied him carefully. "Why do you want to live among humans? We destroyed your fleet. We killed your comrades. You also saved my life," Vashka replied. "When my ship was burning, your doctors treated my wounds. When I was a prisoner, your guards gave me food and water and dignity. No one tortured me. No one threatened me. I did not understand it at first. I thought it was weakness. But now I think it is something else. What do you think it is?" Cole asked. Vashka struggled to find the right words. "Strength," he finally said. "A different kind of strength. The strength to show mercy when mercy is not required. The strength to treat enemies like people. I want to understand how you do this. I want to learn." Cole nodded slowly. "Asylum granted. For you and anyone else who wants it." He extended his hand, a human gesture of friendship. "Welcome to humanity, Vashka. It will take some getting used to." 1 week later, a memorial ceremony was held on the Velthari homeworld. 712 human names were carved into a stone wall, surrounded by Velthari flowers. Admiral Cole stood before the wall with Lieutenant Commander Grayskim at his side. Behind them, thousands of Velthari had gathered to honor the humans who had died for them. A young Velthari child walked forward, carrying a small bundle of flowers. She placed them at the base of the wall and looked up at Admiral Cole with wide, curious eyes. "Why did they die for us?" she asked. "They did not know us." Cole knelt down to meet her gaze. "Because a long time ago, your grandparents saved some of our grandparents. They did not know us either, but they helped us anyway, and you came back because of that?" the child asked. "Yes," Cole said. "That is what humans do. We remember the people who help us. We remember the people who show us kindness. And when those people need us, we come back, no matter how long it takes." The child thought about this for a moment. Then she nodded solemnly and returned to her family. That evening, Councillor Rethus gave a speech that was broadcast across the entire galaxy. His words were simple, but they carried a weight that no one could ignore. 30 years ago, we saved 12,000 desperate humans because it was right. Today, we learned that humans measure their debts not in years, but in generations. And they always repay. Across the galaxy, people listened. And they remembered. In the following weeks, Ambassador Graves received messages from 17 different species. All of them had stories about humans. A human ship that shared its fuel with a stranded freighter. A human doctor who treated patients in a refugee camp. A human engineer who helped rebuild a damaged station. Small kindnesses, easily forgotten. But humans did not forget. And now, neither did anyone else. The galaxy had learned something important that day. Kindness was not weakness. Mercy was not foolishness. And the small species from the edge of the galaxy was not small at all. They were humanity. They remembered everything. And they always came back.